Listen up, beautiful people. I want to take just a minute to tell you about our new hosting site, Anchor. Anchor is your one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So go to anchor.fm/start and become part of the Anchor community today. And now, back to the show.
Oh, you beautiful, beautiful people. Live from the actual supporter section at AutoZone Park, it's the 901 Soccer Podcast. I'm Scotty Smith, and I will be your host. Right now, the supporter section is pretty quiet. Tomorrow night, it's going to be crazy. Tomorrow night is going to be fun. For the first time in 39 years, an outdoor professional soccer team will represent the city of Memphis. 901 FC will take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies at 6 o'clock right here at AutoZone Park. 14 months ago, when USL Memphis was announced to the world, USL Commissioner Jake Edwards came on our show. That night, it was in a crowded pub down at the Brass Door. And we had great conversation. We talked about all manner of things in U.S. soccer. He promised that he would come back if we, or when we actually hosted our first match. That is tomorrow. Commissioner Edwards is in town, and we had a chance to sit down with him and just kind of get an update on things and how things have kind of changed in his job in the 14 months since we have seen him. We talked about the World Cup. We talked about Carlos Cordero. We talked about coaching here in these United States. We talked about the structure of USL and the overall pyramid. We talked about all manner of things. We also talked to Peter Freund. We're going to actually play that interview first. We talked for just a few minutes. We called Peter Freund, the owner of Memphis 901 FC, as it's the time for him is here. He had this idea a long time ago, and now we're right here on the eve of the first match. We got his thoughts and emotions going into it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our interviews with Peter Freund and USL Commissioner Jake Edwards. Ladies and gentlemen, the day is finally here, and we're standing in the middle of the pro shop. A lot has gone into this. Peter B. Freund is standing in the middle of his pro shop, looking around, and everything in here is emblazoned with the Memphis 901 FC logo. It's really happening. Tomorrow is the day. Give us your emotions on the eve of this historic match.
Well, it's really hard to put into words. This has been a journey that started almost 2 years ago, and we've been building toward this moment. And as Craig and I keep reminding each other on the phone, we still haven't played a match. We had the incredible friendly. We saw the passion of the fans and the people of Memphis come out for that. But to see 901 FC actually play is something that we're all incredibly excited for, and I feel like it's watching a baby being born here tomorrow at 6 o'clock at AutoZone Park.
So this is your child, this is your labor of love, and so this is the next step for you is to watch your team. Have you gotten to know some of the guys have you gotten to meet some of the players and kind of getting, hey, these are our guys, and what has that experience been like for you?
Well, I got a chance about a week ago to get down into the locker room before one of the practices, talk to the team, meet the players. Specifically, got to know Birchie a little bit. Mark Birch, our captain, MLS veteran, good friend of Tim Howard's, and just talking to him, and then of course talking on a daily basis to Mulch and Andrew Bell and Craig. I've got a really good sense for this squad, and I'm pretty confident in our season. Exhilarating, and we have our sort of roller coaster of ups and downs. We've had a couple of injuries before the season's even started, but to watch the branding come full circle, to see the sponsorship partners, to have Terminex and to have Silkies and to have St. Jude, where 10% of all of our kit sales are going to St. Jude Children's Hospital. We've been partnering with all of these incredible organizations around the city. So it's been a journey, and we're here. And now that I'm looking at our jerseys hanging on the wall, it really feels real.
As an English teacher, I love the adjective exhilarating. That was absolutely perfect. Peter Freund, congratulations on your team, and good luck this season and going forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good time.
Okay, we are thrilled to have USL Commissioner Jake Edwards with us for a second time. Jake, welcome back to Memphis.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's a little bit warmer this time, but exciting to see the team kick off now. It's been a long 14 months or so since we did the announcement.
Well, you promised that you would come back on 14 months ago. We bribed you with barbecue sauce, and we got to thinking, maybe, just maybe, you're running low on your stockpile. So we have brought you another bottle here just in case you're running a bit low of Central Barbecue Hot. So I hope that is okay for you there.
That is perfect. I've gone through all of them, so I was hoping to get some more off you this trip.
we want you to have a feel of Memphis, even when you're not in Memphis. So that is good.
Yeah, perfect. And that was one of the best ones, I think.
Yeah, you like that. So Central Barbecue is kind of where the locals.
That's where the people in the know go.
We love all of them. Don't get me wrong, we love them all. I mean, there are times where I just go down to Rendezvous and stuff my face for a considerable amount of time. But that's the one I think you're going to be. You're going to get the local vote, I think.
Perfect. So, well, thank you.
It's been 14 months. That was in a crowded pub. Now here we are in the beautiful Peabody Hotel. Both great places, but this one lends itself to slightly more intellectual discussion. So we may get into some philosophy later. But first, tell us how have the last 14 months been for you? Are you keeping yourself busy?
Just a little bit. We've got 14 new clubs starting this year. 14 professional teams in 7 in the Championship and 7 in our new League One. So we're launching a whole new division as well as expanding the Championship division as well. So certainly busy. The off season gets shorter. There's loads of stuff going on now with the new teams, getting them prepared. Lots of new staff at the league office. We'll work on the new media deal for 2020 and beyond. And so it's been busy, very exciting, we're looking at this weekend alone, maybe half a dozen sellouts or more.
Wow.
And I think most of the new teams that are kicking off this particular weekend have already sold out. So exciting.
That is definitely exciting. I opened this up a little bit to some of our friends from the Beautiful Game Network, so we have some questions that kind of just, we're going to go around the country here a little bit and just talk about sort of the state of the game. But first I want to start off by asking you about Memphis itself. Since we've seen you last, the branding has hit the market, hit the social media. There are people I talk to who are heading down to the team shop all day today. What did you think about the branding when you saw it, and how has it been received so far?
Well, I got a sneaky peek of it back 14 months ago. So, although it wasn't finalized, it was sort of near enough finalized. And I have to say, even then, it jumped straight out at me. I thought this is really cool, really exciting, and I think it's going to look, it's going to play well on all the merchandise, and I think people will really like it, and you'll see people wearing it with pride. And I love the name. I love a lot of our teams are going away from the traditional naming roots and the traditional logos and the uniforms now. There's a piece coming out, I think, in the Athletic soon, focusing on the unique kits we have in the league, and I love that expression of local flair and local flavour that we're seeing across all the different brand identities that the team can have. So to reflect the 901 and the neon of Beale Street, and I think it's really cool. And from the outside looking in, it looks very cool. Yeah. You guys are here. You tell me what you think. Yeah, I think it looks like it's being received well.
I'll say we have gotten nothing but positive feedback, and that's a really weird thing in American soccer. Maybe worldwide, but there's a lot of negativity that just jumps around, and we have had nothing but positive feedback on the branding. Even if I'm talking about from national people, we had a Tampa guy, Mike Pendleton, part of Ralph's Mob, was on the show last week, and he always does these rebrands, and he's like, I didn't even mess with Memphis because I loved the way it looked. And that, got a little pride feeling about that. So. Yeah.
Mike's one of the most die-hard fans you'll ever see. Oh. He's come to the office with me. He's a brilliant guy, and he's so committed, and his family to that club. You're right; they're subjective. Everyone's got an opinion of a brand, and who knows when they launch as long as it stirs up some emotion. But like you said, I think this has really resonated, and I think you'll see a lot of people wearing those shirts with pride tomorrow.
Well, and it's great to have that, but it's also great to have someone who can really, kind of go to bat for your team. Tim Howard has been that guy for us. I know you got a chance to talk to Tim 14 months ago at the launch. Have you been surprised with the degree to which he's been involved and how he has really kind of been the champion for this team going out in the community and really making sure that everybody knows about Memphis 901 FC?
Sort of yes and no. No, because I know how important this project was to him from the get-go, how important it was to think about the next phase of his life. He's a very busy man in a number of different ways beyond playing the game still. But I knew this meant so much to him, this project, to be part of building a club. And then also his roots are so deep and he's really connected to this community, and you can see that as well. And he just brings a whole nother level of authenticity and passion and a
legitimacy, right?
Legitimacy and following, right? He's a very widely followed individual, and so I think having him involved and what he brings is invaluable, and surrounded by some top-notch front office executives and just great ownership. Really committed to investing in this and making this a success. The brand launch was phenomenal. It was one of the best I've seen in our league. So they're getting behind it in the right way, and certainly having Tim involved has brought a lot of interest. And there's a number of other players like Tim of his sort of stature from the US and overseas that are starting to look at USL Championship clubs now and are looking at this as an opportunity to get involved and give something back to the game on the professional side.
That's really cool. Do you want to drop any names there, or you?
Well, you see, obviously, it followed with Didier Drogba out in Phoenix. We've got another 2 expansion teams that have not been named or announced yet coming online in the next 2 seasons that will both have world famous names, current players and former players involved in them as well. So I think that's quite exciting. It adds another layer of interest to it.
There's the rumor out there about David Villa and the Queensboro project. We may talk about that, a little bit later. So some of these rumors kind of come online and, discuss these things. But we're talking about internationally recognized names, right? Internationally recognized names that are being involved in the league. And I'm sure that has to be extremely exciting for you. Also, since we've seen you, we kind of had some changes in the United States. We now have a new federation president. Carlos Cordero has come on as in that role. Have you had a chance to talk with him yet? And what did you talk about? How did the discussion go the first time that you met with Carlos Cordero since he's been the president of the USSF?
Yeah, we've known Carlos and met with him several times over the years prior to his movement into the top spot, and he's got his hands full. He's got a World Cup coming. He's inherited all of that.
Right.
He was able to get it over the line, crucially. And he's got a big job on his hands, and there's a lot of things going on now from the youth and the adult and the amateur and the pro level and the national teams, men's and women's. So he's certainly got his hands full, and he's got to deliver a really great World Cup. So we've spent some time. We actually just hosted them in Tampa. U.S. Women's National Team played a final game of the She Believes Cup in Tampa this week. We were at the game there. We were sitting with Carlos and Dan Flynn and just seeing. For us, it's about what's their mission, what have they got ahead of them, and how the USL can play a role in that.
Right.
The next 7 years is going to be a game changer. Now we've got to make sure, along with the MLS, the USL and the Federation, those are the 3 key players here, and then obviously sort of the umbrella under CONCACAF. But what do we need to be doing from the USL point of view, from our club point of view, to make sure that we are significant and extremely relevant when that massive roadshow comes to town? So in and amongst the general things that we connect in with the Federation, that's the higher level stuff I'm interested in.
Right. How do you see the league in 7 years? I mean, you've talked a lot about expansion. This was a significant year for expansion, but how do you see the league, and maybe more importantly, how do you see the structure, the pyramid in 7 years when the World Cup comes to town, as you say?
When the World Cup comes, think about in 1994 when it came. There wasn't an organised professional league at that point,
right?
And almost 2 decades later, we're going to have a MLS. By the time it gets here, probably pushing 30 professional teams,
right.
Good stadiums, good infrastructure, good youth academies, and quality world-class players. For the first time, when that comes, you're going to have a integrated structure of professional divisions below, just like we have the Football League in England. That's something we've not had before, and that's taken a lot of time to put together. But it's critical. So when we think of the Championship, League One, and League Two that are going to sit underneath MLS, these are going to be populated with phenomenal clubs like Memphis, like Louisville, like Sacramento, like Phoenix, and they have stadiums that we are going to be building. We've got about 25 stadiums to build between now and the time that World Cup comes across those 2 divisions. We've got a team in Statesboro, Georgia, building a phenomenal stadium as well for its new League One team. So the stadium piece and the infrastructure around the venues it's so critical that we have these 10 to 15,000 seat stadiums across the country built just for soccer to showcase the sport in the right way, and that's something we're working hard on. We will have a finished league then in terms of the expansion, and there'll be some teams coming out, some teams coming in, and we'll probably be at around where we are now, 36 to 38 teams. The League One that will be expanded roughly in the same sort of size and numbers. And then we'll keep working on our League Two, pre-professional, amateur league as well. And there'll be some changes to that structure. So we hope to have this final sort of structure, and each of our pro teams now are putting youth academies in place. And that's critical that we do that in the right way. We get the right coaches, and we put pathways in place to get those kids through the academies into their League One team or into their championship team and start to push them forward. So we create this proper pathway, and we have this infrastructure to create a real marketplace to develop and move professional players on into MLS national team or overseas. So there's a lot of structure work we need to continue to do. There's infrastructure work in terms of building the stadiums and training grounds, and all that's coming. And then for us, it's about increasing what we're doing with our media partners, digital partners, and all the content we keep producing, and new commercial partners that are going to come into the league. So I think by the time that World Cup comes here, you're going to see a substantial amount of players, USL players, playing in that World Cup. And they increase the number of teams. Right. We've already got over 60 full senior internationals in the USL. A lot of them are from CONCACAF countries. So we're going to be heavily involved in this World Cup.
Right.
It's very exciting. But we never accept a status quo at the league or at the clubs, and we're not where we want to be. But in 7 years, I believe we will be.
Yes, you mentioned the Tormenta project in South Georgia. We briefly touched on the potential new stadium in Queens. Lakeland, Florida is a city that has talked about potentially building a soccer-specific stadium. You've got the Ronkonkoma project out on Long Island. All of these places are investing in soccer. When you arrived here in the late 80s, nobody was really investing in soccer. So a lot of changes going on there. Well, what happens, take us behind the curtain a little bit, what happens when you get a phone call and they say, Mr. Edwards, so-and-so's on line one, you pick it up, and it's somebody wanting to invest in soccer, be it at the championship level, the League One level, probably we're talking about professional soccer here. How do those initial conversations take place? How much knowledge do they have? And how do you kind of walk them through what would be the right fit for them in your league structure?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. It was mostly outbound. When you're trying to expand, you're going into the cities. And we're doing a bit of that now with League One. We're going to those marketplaces. We're sitting down with the mayor and the sports commission. We're talking about bringing a professional sports team to that market, and how do they feel about that? And is there an opportunity to work with them on a venue if one doesn't exist? And is there a ownership group or an individual there that they want to bring to the table? So that's sort of one avenue, and you might see that in League One. Typically, though, in League One and certainly in the Championship, it's mostly inbound now, which is great, and it's reflective of the interest in the sport itself. And that comes in a number of ways. We might have an owner who has a relationship with another, someone in his or her industry, or a friend of theirs, or what have you, that may be interested in a different city. So there's an introduction, and we can start that conversation. It may be from oftentimes investment bankers or private equity funds, or people that are working perhaps on behalf of a big investor. The investors now, the owners, are significantly higher net worth individuals than perhaps they were 5 years ago, and so the sort of approach for those individuals is slightly different, of course. From the moment you have the inbound and you start meeting with the investor, then it's exploring their vision for it, and is it aligned with what we think? Is it sustainable? Is it long term a benefit to that community? And then is that community right for the USL? Does it fit in well? Do we think it's going to be a success? So we've got to start doing our due diligence, both on the owner and the business plan. We'll go to the city, spend time with the different civic bodies in the mayor's office to see their level of interest, and sort of move that process forward. And then ultimately you get to the stage where you put in applications in, you're going through franchise agreements and the business plan and all the rest of it. But ultimately it's always for us, do we have a local owner, or is the majority of the ownership group local?
Right.
Do they understand that community? Do they have the relationships with the political relationships, the business relationships? Do they have the right vision for the sport or for what they want to deliver? And how committed are they long term to this community? And so we've got to think about that. Is there a stadium plan that makes sense? Is there a stadium currently there that makes sense? Is there an ability to build a soccer stadium long term? And then what does the business and the political support look like? And then always is the fan support. Is there a passion for the sport there? Is it going to be well embraced? And so a lot of things now. And we've got to be a lot pickier now than we used to be. So we've got to be a lot more selective, and we've got to tick all of those boxes. 5, 7, 8 years ago, it was a bit of a race, for survival. There was competing leagues. You had to make sure that you were building your league and getting the numbers. The landscape we're in now is that they've got to launch well. They've got to have a sustainable business. We've got to build healthy clubs. Therefore, we've got to spend a lot of time on the front end making sure we make the right decisions. You don't always get everything right. You got to make the best decision you can based on the experiences of what you've seen launch well and not launch well.
Yeah.
So it's a reasonably lengthy process.
Right. So a little closer to home here, Nashville, before they ever kicked a ball in USL, was announced as an MLS expansion team. St. Louis and Sacramento are likely to go at some point. Indy has applied. Raleigh, Charlotte, Phoenix, Tampa, they've all applied for MLS expansion. What happens when those if those teams jump up to the first division and you're now missing out in a market where you were? Is it a matter of, do you foresee a time where you'll pull League One teams up into the championship? Or do you think it'll just be a situation of, well, let's balance our numbers here, here, and here? Is a fourth division professional league a possibility at some point? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the landscape's going to evolve a little bit. It's a bit fluid. Orlando moved up. Cincinnati have now just moved up. Nashville will move up next season. That will taper off, obviously, as MLS sort of gets closer to its final expansion number. There's a couple of more markets I'm sure they're looking at seriously to join their league over the next few seasons. Some of those, not all of them, but some of those will be markets where we have a team. And in some of those cases, some of the groups in the USL will be in consideration to move up. So two things: it's a shrinking number of situations like that we'll encounter moving forward, and I think the business and the economics are changing as well. I think a few years ago we didn't have enough teams that were doing those kind of numbers from a business point of view and attendance point of view. And I think if you're the only one or two, if you're the only team that's drawing significant crowds,
you stand
and
out.
you're looking over the top of everyone else, you stand out and you're going to think, well, maybe we don't belong here, maybe we should belong somewhere else. Our responsibility as a championship league is to make sure all of our teams start to look like that. And every league's going to have differences in club performance. We get that. But once a third or 50% or 3/4 of the league all start to look like similar clubs, and they're all doing very well on the business side, and they're all starting to build stadiums, and they're all well invested in their clubs, and they're all getting 8, 10, 12,000 on average a game. The appeal to spend $200 million and to join, and then another $350 million to build a stadium. The people that makes sense to is a very small group. From a business decision, you're talking billionaires that can lose a lot of money. They're going to make those kind of decisions. So that, I think, is going to change. Now it's incumbent on us and our owners to build a top class league that the best performing teams see it makes more sense for them and their communities to stay in the USL. Right? And that's the simple truth. And that's why we're pushing so hard now to build these stadiums. When I was at Cincinnati's game last season, one of the games, there's 25,000 people there. I was there at the home opener when the league was in the 3rd division, and there was over 20,000. I was at Nashville's home opener, 19,000. I was at Indy's home opener, 19,000. And so if you get the right stadium in the right location, it is a little irrelevant the division you're in, I have to say. People want to come out in big numbers and support their local team.
Right.
And so that'll shift. And then how do we sort of react to a team coming in or coming out? You have to bring another group in that's better, And so when Orlando was the only team in our league that was getting more than 5,000 or 6,000 people on average, then Sacramento will come in and they'll do 10,000 on average. Sacramento is leading the way, and then Cincinnati, and then all these other teams, Louisville, and it's incumbent on everyone else. Vegas now. You're seeing a lot of teams now coming in doing well. So if a team moves on, we've got to make sure the next group are just as good or better. We've got depth now. We didn't have depth before. So we've got the Championship. Now we've got League One, and we're going to build some quality clubs in League One. And then we've got League Two, which is an amateur league. There's over 80 clubs in that. So there's 130 franchises now between the 3 leagues. But it's constrained to a summer window, League Two, and it's amateur. It's all collegiate players. And so we are looking at how that structure might change. Should it change? Collegiate window might be changing. So you might see some structural changes in that. And I'm not saying it'll be a 4th professional division, but there might be some additional level that's created,
like a hybrid league or something along that. Something along those lines. You signed a deal with a stadium, a modular stadium designer who came online. Do you see the possibility of some modular stadiums, maybe even that could eventually become permanent stadiums? Take down a stand here, build one here. Is there a place for modular stadiums in the 2 professional league structures that you're looking at right now? And could League Two even look at the possibility of modular stadiums?
Yeah, absolutely. Modular stadiums are great, predominantly as a short-term solution or an interim solution while you build the fan base. It's a low-cost solution. We still have a modular stadium in Sacramento. They've added to it. It started at 8,000 seats, and now it's over 12,000 seats. And Phoenix is a modular stadium, right? And that's been really wrapped in well, so you can't really tell that. It's got mobile suites. And we've got a couple of other stadiums that are doing that as well. We had a modular stadium in Colorado Springs, but now we're moving downtown next season into a permanent fixed structure. Ultimately, we'd like to move towards those structures. What you're going to see in Colorado Springs, what you see right now, let's say in San Antonio, fantastic stadium down there, or in Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, and Louisville's building a 15,000 seat downtown stadium, and that's what we want to get to. But if that means you do a modular, you're talking the difference of a modular between $3 and $7 million to put together, and 40 to 60 for a more fixed infrastructure. So there's a significant difference, and there certainly is a stepping stone. And then whether it's you take down a side and you start building something permanent, that's an option. But like I said, it's a lower cost option, and we're doing it in the Championship. You'll see it in League One, and I think we might be seeing it in League Two as well.
We had a question come in about coaching. The very simple question was, what does it literally take as far as coaching license to coach in each of your leagues?
And then go ahead and answer that, and then I kind of got a follow-up about coaching. So what would it take to coach in each of your leagues? What does a potential coach need to have as far as licensure?
Yeah, so you need an A license. The federation mandate that everyone that coaches a professional team needs an A license.
So that's also League One?
Yes, and they give you 2 seasons to do that.
Okay.
With the championship, we take the position that you need the A license right away upon hire. We've worked with the federation to create a January an off-season license program in January for those coaches that may not have it or are on a B and need to fast track through and try and get on the A quickly. So we've created a course for those coaches to get on that. But you need an A, know, and so we've got some coaches coming into the game with B, and we're trying to get them onto an A as quick as we can. We'll give a coach with a B license as an assistant. We'll give them a year before they can get their A, but they need to get their A license.
Yeah. So what about League Two? Is that something that is just kind of flexible as a result of it
flexible
not being
League Two, because it's not for professionals, so it's not under the rules, the Pro League standards of the federation. So we don't enforce that either. So we have some most of the coaches will have those qualifications, but some don't.
Okay, so are we doing enough? You mentioned some, getting some of those coaches. Are we doing enough in coaching in this country and making it accessible to where coaches, even from the youth organizations, maybe high school, college, are we doing enough to where they can get to that A level? Eventually, go ahead and move up to an A.
It's a good question. I'm not sure we are doing enough to educate the coaches and get them through. It's one thing to put them on coaching courses and to get those licenses. It's another thing to get the right experience week in, week out, and applying the learning. I think with some tremendous coaches at all levels in this country, we can always do better. Of course, we can always have better coach educators, whether they're coming from the federation or the Coaches Association or coming from overseas. We're trying to do 2 things really. One is the coaches we have, or the coaches that are coming into our pipeline, whether it's from our new academy league that's going to be launching, whether it's our League 2 or League 1, coaches coming into the USL system. We've got to get them into the right philosophy, and we've got to get them on the pathway. And so we've been working hard now to get a coaching license course outside of the season, which was always during the season, so the coaches could never do it. Outside of the season, to get them on the ladder. We've got a lot of coaches now on the A license, and all the championship coaches have at least done the A license. A lot of them have done their UEFA badges. More coaches from the USL than ever before now are going on the pro license course, which we're happy to see that. So we've got to keep pushing those guys through. Now we're looking to see if we can have academy licenses put together. We're working on that right now, and we're looking for a way to get our current professional players into these coaching courses as well, so we can keep them in the USL ecosystem as well. So you'll start to see this year, we'll start rolling out some coaching courses just for the pro players.
All right, so you mentioned the Academy League. Can you give us a little bit more about that and tell us what that's going to... You actually talked about it last time you were on the show, but it was kind of a vague idea at the time. I know in the last 14 months you've probably developed that a little bit more. What does it look like now in March of 2019?
Yeah, well, so a lot of our teams already have academies. We have 8 clubs that have academy levels playing in the development academy, and the rest of our teams have youth infrastructure in varying leagues that they're playing in. So we're trying to bring all that together, both at League 1 and the Championship, and bring those clubs ultimately to a professional academy league. That's our vision. That's going to take a bit of time to get the infrastructure and the coaching quality and everything at the right level. So that's going to take us a couple of seasons. We're going to start this year, and we're making some announcements soon about pro exclusive events. So we're going to have our professional teams bring youth age groups to several locations around the country this year for one-off showcase events, and we're looking to do that potentially in partnership with some other leagues around the world to create some additional level of interest and build upon those showcase events and do it in a way that's complementary and not threatening to any youth clubs that are in those markets that we're in as well. and to see if we can be value add for the good players in that region, and bring them to showcase events where it's just for the pro clubs, and there's a unique sort of audience there. And then work on that infrastructure through till we can move towards an academy league. Now you're going to have over time 70 or 80 professional clubs at least between our two divisions.
Right.
So we'll be able to regionalize this league in a way that does start to make sense.
Okay, so the other thing that you briefly touched on it there, you have talked in the past about the possibility of maybe a cup between the United States, Mexico, Canada. Has there been any development along those lines?
Yeah, it's called hosting the World Cup. So they trumped us. We're still working on an interleague cup. So first and foremost, it's going to be an interdivision cup between the Championship and League One, and that's something we're looking to kick off. I think probably at this point in 21, that's what we're working towards in 2021 to kick that off. A bit more work to be done on that. I would like to see a way if we can open that opportunity to some of the other countries in this region. But first and foremost, it's definitely it's certainly doable between our own divisions. Whether we can pull in or need to pull in other countries into that, time will tell.
Well, we are, of course, very excited about tomorrow, but I do want to ask this question again. We established in your soccer journey last time you were on the show about, coming here prior to the 1994 World Cup. I know we're kind of World Cup heavy here in what we're talking about, but can you speak to the level of the passion of the fans and what you are witnessing now, again, in March 2019, kicking off a new league year, compared to what it was like when you arrived here in the 1980s?
Yes, it's massively different, and it's a mainstream sport now where it wasn't before, and it's a sport that it's entrenched itself here. It's one of the top sports in this country. Everyone's playing it, everyone's watching it. It's so inclusive, and what we're seeing at the USL is a vehicle to express your passion and your pride in your city, in your community, through your team. And all the communities I go to, they have phenomenal supporters groups. Now, this is something that perhaps we didn't have, maybe you didn't see this as much maybe 2 decades ago or so, but now every team has it, and you'll see it tonight. Tomorrow night I'll be at the brass door, and I'll be.
You can come down to the brass door tonight too.
I'll be there, and you'll see them all marching in, and it's phenomenal. And like I said, it's a tribal game. Soccer is tribal, and people want to show their love for their team and their love for their community. And this sport delivers all of that, and it is very different than it used to be. And it's more accepted by the mainstream now. Used to be called, it was a fringe sport, a communist sport. It was a sport it didn't really get, and now everyone's playing it, everyone's watching it. It's so cool to see, and I think that'll keep going. It'll keep going and become more and more integral in people's lives and serious part of people's life. It's great.
Well, we're glad to have you here. We're glad that you came to Memphis, and we hope that we can. We're really, really working as hard as we can to get the weather system that is supposed to come in tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
Pushed out of the area so we can have the launch that is worthy of what we've seen so far from this club. And we've just to be as a local, we've been very, very impressed by what we've seen so far. No question about that. We just need the rain to get out of here tomorrow so everything can go off according to plan. Thank you for being with us, Jake Edwards. It's always good to have you, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure. Anytime.
Well, that's going to about wrap it up for this episode. Come on down to AutoZone Park. Witness some history Saturday night at 6 o'clock. While you're here, you need to visit the Pro Shop. There's a lot of new stuff, and it looks fantastic. New shirts, new hats. There are 2 new scarves, one for the inaugural season and one for the inaugural match. There's also a new El Fuego burritos in the Terminex Terrace. So that's exciting. From now on, we want everything to be about the action on the field. We're going to have an analyst for each match. Alan Davis will be the analyst for this first match. We'll talk to him early next week. We'll break it down. This historic first match. He's going to let us know what he saw on the field. So join us for that next week as we kind of gear into actual things that are going on the field with this team. And that'll kind of be a little shift in focus and purpose. We've been a long time here talking about the lead up to, and now it's here. Thank you to Peter Freund. Thank you to Jake Edwards. And thank you to you for listening to the 901 Soccer Podcast.